Hello everybody, SlimKirby here, and welcome to another Mario series ranking video. Notice how I didn't specifically say Mario Party right there. Don't worry, I'm still working on the Mario Party 3 minigames list, and I'll try to have that ready in a few weeks for you guys. I just needed to take a break from the huge undertaking that list was. Also, last month, we got some very unexpected news. At least it was something I wasn't expecting anyway, which prompted me to work on a different ranking video. A video I've been wanting to attempt for a while now, and after last month's Nintendo Direct, I knew I had to shift gears and start working on this instead. For those who follow me on social media, you may know that in 2020 and 2021, I became very addicted to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Now, I've always loved the game, both on Switch and its original version on Wii U, but on these last 2 years especially, I really got into the game exponentially more than any time before that. To put this into perspective, when I did my video on the worldwide Wi-Fi versus mode, I had only around 5,500 VR, and that was after 2 years of owning the game. Just the other day, I reached 40,000 VR, almost 8 times as much in around the same time frame. Now, it helps that I've met some really good friends who I've come to enjoy and love playing the game with, but I think it speaks volumes for how great this game truly is, to warrant that amount of playtime and dedication without it getting old and repetitive. And on February 9th, 2022, Nintendo announced that it wasn't quite done with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. People were expecting a Mario Kart 9, but instead we essentially got a second full helping of DLC tracks. That's right, we are going from an already record-breaking 48 tracks to 96, and that's pretty dang incredible. Now, obviously Mario Kart Tour has a lot of this and then some, and many people are kind of skeptical with how these tracks will look in the Mario Kart 8 engine when it seems like Nintendo is just literally porting the Tour versions, but I'm personally hyped to see what these tracks will be like in this game, experiencing some nostalgia with courses I've played at a much younger age, and even some courses I've never even played before. So yeah, safe to say, I'm really excited for this, and I can officially confirm that the Mario Kart 8 Let's Play on my channel isn't quite done yet. But more info on that on a later date and time. So let's get back to this video. Now, as I mentioned, there was another ranking video I really wanted to make on this channel, and since we are getting a bunch of new tracks for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, that complicates my plans a bit because I initially wanted to do a ranking video of how I feel about all the tracks in this game. So, before I get a chance to play any of the new tracks, let's do that now, shall we? I present to you my ranking video of the 48 base game tracks in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. I will only be focusing on racing tracks and not the battle mode stages, and as far as ranking criteria are concerned, it will largely just be based on tracks I love playing on. But I will take stuff like general track design, challenge, how appealing a course looks, and how it plays on 200cc and mirror mode into consideration as well, but usually in the sense of splitting what's already going to be the tiniest of hairs. We do have 48 things to rank here after all, and there are bound to be some tracks that I could honestly go either way on. But yeah, that's pretty much the plan I have here, so I hope you guys are ready for high-speed racing and ranking action. Here is my ranking for all the base game tracks in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. And as always, this is just my personal opinion. You may disagree, and that's fine. Feel free to share your own input in the video comments section below. Number 48. Here is perhaps what will be the most polarizing track in this game, and from its placement, you can most definitely see what side I lean on with this one. For last place, I'm picking Baby Park. I know some people love this track with how chaotic it can get, and the fact that it has 7 laps you have to get through, but for me, the chaos here is just a bit too much. Plus, it's way too short of a track with too basic of a design, literally being the shape of one of those Dr. Mario pills. Even 200cc doesn't really add too much to this track either. I used to like this track in Double Dash when I was younger, but I guess you could say I've kinda grown out of Baby Park over the years. Number 47, Ice Ice Outpost. Of all the new tracks that came out with the original Mario Kart 8 DLC, this track was always the one I was a bit underwhelmed by. It's just not very interesting to me. The 2 different colored paths didn't really seem like they offered that much variety, some of the turns can feel a bit awkward, and I'm not really crazy about any of the potential shortcuts you can take on this level either. I just don't have a lot of fun with this one, and even in 200cc, it's not very fun for me. Number 46, Cheeseland. This was a track I was really looking forward to seeing remixed in this game when it was first announced, but my gosh, did they make this one hell to race on. Some of the turns for this track are insane, and the little holes on the ground only serve to mess up your drifting momentum. I know they're meant to simulate the holes you can find in wedges of cheese, but still, was that really necessary here? Also, this track has one of the most broken double shortcuts in the entire game. Smuggle 2 mushrooms or a Starman or any kind of off-road boosting item combination to the very last section of the track, and you'll literally skip a number of placements in the rankings guaranteed. I think this track just ended up being a bit too extra by the end of the day, and it's another track I really don't like racing on 200cc either. Number 45, EXCITEBIKE Arena. My feelings for this track are very similar to how I feel about Baby Park, but I'll cut it a little slack because it is a bit longer, and I do think the randomized layouts for each time you race this track is a pretty interesting touch, which makes it a little more fun to race on. Only a little, though. I will give a little credit for 200cc giving a nice rush for this one, but it does also make the track a lot shorter. Also, be on the lookout for green shells, you will grow to hate them on this track. Number 44, Bone Dry Dunes. This track is just kinda dull. It's another desert track like Cheeseland, and I do think it's a little easier to race on, but being in the Special Cup, it does naturally have some tricky sections, and you really need to practice if you want to master this course. However, I get a greater thrill out of mastering some of the other more difficult tracks in this game, and not so much this one. Also, the section after the air glider, if you manage to miss the high pad, it can be quite tedious driving through that final stretch, since there are no more items to protect you, and you have to navigate through some awkwardly placed dry bones. It just makes you feel kind of vulnerable to that last second red shell, and with people zooming through the off-road with mushrooms or starmen, it can be quite defeating taking a loss at the line. It's also another track that's very awkward on 200cc. Number 43, Mario Circuit, Mario Kart 8. Remember Figure 8 Circuit from Mario Kart DS? Literally a figure 8 racetrack with nothing really interesting going on aside from the standard Mario Kart items? That's how I feel about this course. Given it's a pretty cool display of Mario Kart 8's anti-gravity system, and it has some Piranha plans for that little extra Mario flavor, but the other Mario circuits in this game are just a bit more fun for me to race on. And I also don't have too much to say about 200cc on this track either. Number 42, Moo Moo Meadows. This is a case of I don't hate this track, but it's a bit too quick for my own liking. There are only 6 chances for items, and the distance between placements will never feel that substantial, so if the person behind you or even in front of you gets a better item, you're going to have a bit of a rough time and probably won't be making too much progress until the final lap, and I never like banking on those final lap Hail Marys with items. 200cc also makes this incredibly short track even shorter, and as a result, it's a course that I don't really like getting too much whenever I'm playing this game online. Number 41, WARIO'S Goldmine. This track is better than its original variation, but this was one of my least favorite tracks in Mario Kart Wii, so that's not really saying too much. I do like the idea of changing the minecart hazards into anti-gravity boosts to make that section a little less annoying, and I do have some fun with some of the corner cutting jumps you can make. Honestly, my least favorite part of this track now is the Swooper Cave. I swear, those bats always seem to find a way to get in my way at the worst possible time. 200cc is okay on here, but it doesn't change it too significantly for me. Still a track that I'm not really too fond of. Number 40, Grumble Volcano. I stand by this course being a really cool track, literally racing on an active and crumbling volcano as it very subtly changes throughout the 3 laps you race on it, and although I do say it's better than its original rendition due to the Mario Kart 8 engine, this is another track that always gives me trouble on for one reason or another. Some of the turns can be really tight, some of the fire snakes can be a bit unpredictable, and if an item hits you at just the wrong time, I find you can be quite susceptible to further issues in recovering. Another one of those tracks where it's a challenge to master, but its rewarding nature feels very conditional, if that makes sense. 200cc also significantly increases the difficulty here, with so many missing pieces of the track on future laps. Also, did we really just have all 3 Mario Kart Wii tracks in a row here? I think we did. Let's hope Coconut Mall does better when it releases. Number 39, Rainbow Road, Nintendo 64. I was really excited to see this track in Mario Kart 8 when it was first revealed to be a returning track, and it looks absolutely breathtaking in this game. Plus, the anti-gravity, in addition to the much faster speed, does make the sloggy and slow-pacedness of the original feel way more fast-paced. However, it's only one lap. They essentially took the longest track in Mario Kart 64 and made it feel like the shortest track in this game, and that's a bit unfortunate. Heck, even making it 2 laps would have been a good enough compromise for me, but only 1 lap just has me wanting and pining for more here. Number 38, Piranha Plant Slide. I wasn't too crazy about this track in Mario Kart 7, but I don't think it's a bad track by any means. Driving on the waterways and avoiding Goombas while trying to get an item to protect yourself can be a bit tricky. There's also the 90-degree turns, making sure you don't miss the track when coming off the gliding section, and of course making sure that you don't get attacked if you try and take the shortcut at the very end. In other words, it's an okay track with some trouble spots. Not enough to put it in the bottom 10, but I still find myself choosing many other options over this one. It's also another challenging 200cc course for me as well. Number 37, Toad's Turnpike. Toad's Turnpike was an absolute nightmare in the N64 version, especially when you race on 150cc and mirror mode. In this game, it's way more tame. I do think the anti-gravity overpasses was a unique idea, giving you a slower but ultimately safer haven away from the traffic and potential item attacks, but the track layout itself is pretty basic and not too exciting, even when you add 200cc as an option. I'm just a bit underwhelmed with this one, that's all. Number 36, Animal Crossing. The idea of having 4 different tracks in one, each one representing a different season, was a cool idea and a great representation of the Animal Crossing brand. It's also cool getting the chance to see some of your favorite Animal Crossing characters and villagers in the background as well. However, I wouldn't say I'm too fond of the track layout itself. Missing an item box during the balloon section can be absolutely devastating, as your next item chance won't be until the very end of the lap and or race, and getting the right line for the shortcut at the end can be problematic if you don't time it right and crash into the rocks instead. Also, winter. I hate winter. It's way too slippery and can mess up some of the more challenging sections of this course. 200cc can also be a bit annoying as well on this track, but I'd say it's better here than in other cases. Number 35, Super Bell Subway. This actually used to be one of my least favorite tracks, but I've warmed up to it a little bit over time. It can be kind of challenging, especially due to the fact that you may not be expecting the train cars to be where they are, especially when they are so close together, but it is something you can get a feel for over time in practice. Just be careful with how you cut across off-road sections in this course, especially when you only have mushrooms, as there are times where a blind turn could spell disaster for you if you aren't prepared for what's coming around the bend. I also think 200cc kind of works well for this one, since there aren't too many tight turns, and I don't feel like the subway cars mess with you any more than they usually would, so you get a nice rush of speed from this course. Number 34, Dry Desert. Once again, we have another very solid improvement of a retro track, and I love how anti-gravity isn't even the big inclusion in this one, rather the oasis near the end of the course for a brief underwater section. While I do think this course is better than the original and doesn't do anything bad per se, I also feel like it also doesn't really have anything amazing going for it either. It's an alright track that plays pretty well in 200cc as well. Number 33, Rainbow Road, Mario Kart 8. This is another track I've warmed up to over time, and really my only problem with it is the fact that I feel like after the last 2 Rainbow Roads, in Mario Kart Wii and Mario Kart 7, this one is just kind of underwhelming by comparison. Almost like it should be called Rainbow Station, instead of trying to be a successor to the Rainbow Road name itself. Aside from that, I don't mind racing on this track too much anymore. There's a really cool shortcut after the path split, and some of the turns will really test your brake drifting skill, especially if you try this track on 200cc. That sharp turn near the beginning will forever be one of the most devastating turns in Mario Kart history. It's a track that can be hard to manage, but I have gotten some satisfaction in improving on this one, even if just a little bit. Number 32, Mario Circuit, Game Boy Advance. I actually expected this one to be a little bit higher because before the Wii U DLC, this was the only GBA track in Mario Kart 8, and I loved how they actually reconstructed it to not be as flat as it was in the original. However, it is a Mario Circuit track, which are historically pretty plain courses to race on, so I guess its placement isn't too shocking. There are some pretty neat mushroom shortcuts in this track as well, which can be pretty exciting to pull off in the final stretch of a heated race. And since it's not complicated, 200cc can be quite a rush as well, albeit a bit short. Number 31, Water Park. There's not a lot to say about this one if I'm being honest. It's got a cool aesthetic, it's short, sweet, and to the point without feeling too short like some of the other tracks, but there is a part of me that just wishes there was more to this one. Like, even just one extra lap of content or something. It's still good though and fits the mold of a solid Mushroom Cup track, it's just, again, I want a little more from it. Number 30, Wario Stadium. This was actually one of my favorite tracks to race on in Mario Kart DS. It didn't have the craziness of Waluigi Stadium or Wario Coliseum from Double Dash, but it was more compact and didn't overdo it with all the jumps and bumps of the original Wario Stadium on N64 either. Anti-gravity spices things up a bit, and it even adds a water section at the very end of the course as well, but that's pretty much all to say about this one. It's still pretty good, and 200cc does actually offer a bit of a challenge with some of its very tight turns. Number 29, Yoshi Circuits. Yoshi Circuit can actually be kind of a difficult track with some of its twists and turns, and make sure to brace yourself when 200cc is on the table, but aside from the inclusion of potential 200cc, there's not really much of a difference between this and its previous iterations. It's still a pretty decent circuit track. Number 28, Hyrule Circuits. What's this? Zelda and my Mario Kart? What's next? Animal Crossing and Splatoon? Oh wait, never mind. Yeah, so this was another pretty big thing when it was first announced, given we have had other cameos in previous Mario Kart games, and Mario and Link are no strangers thanks to Smash Bros. But still, it was neat to see not only Link as a playable racer, but a Zelda-themed track to add to the mix as well. And, well, it's good. I do kind of wish there was a little more Zelda influence, though. Yeah, we have rupees instead of coins, and the Deku Baba's acting as piranha plants, plus the Master Sword Chamber is also a pretty neat addition, but I still just kind of wish they would have gone a bit more all-out with the Zelda series nostalgia. For example, the F-Zero tracks, which we will be seeing later, those feel like they could actually be F-Zero tracks. Animal Crossing feels like you are in an actual Animal Crossing village. Even Excitebike Arena, for those who actually played Excitebike on the NES, you feel the Excitebike influence. With Hyrule Circuit, while the feeling is there for a legendary series like Zelda, I just was expecting a little more from it. However, the track layout by itself is fine, there are some pretty decent mushroom shortcuts you can take as well, 200cc runs pretty well on it, and there are even some places where you can be a bit strategic with item placements to mess up your opposition. It's a pretty good track, I just was once again wanting a little more from it. Number 27, Sweet Sweet Canyon. Anyone here for a sugar rush? I mean, sure, we've had Chocolate Island and Cocoa Mountain in the past, and heck, even Cookie Land is a pretty notable Mario Kart battle course, but with this Mushroom Cup track, I swear the developers were like, no, let's make everyone's sweet tooth jiggle in anticipation for what tasty treats we'll have on this course. And honestly, it's not too bad. It's not a very long track, but there are a couple of different places where you can get items, and the split path in the middle will help in dividing up the possibilities of getting struck by a red shell. There's also the donut shortcut at the end, which can be a point of contention for some people as you need to be angled properly to take it without crashing or going in the off-road, but it can feel quite rewarding if you nail it and swipe a placement or two away from your rivals. It's a pretty solid Mushroom Cup track, I must say. Number 26, Dragon Driftway. This track is probably one of the more difficult tracks of the entire game, and I might even argue that it is the hardest track in this game. It's very challenging, has some very tight turns that can be a nightmare on 200cc, and has some tricky spots that could absolutely wreck you if you aren't careful or paying attention to the road or items in front of you. With enough practice and strategic management of items though, this track can be a really fun track to optimize and try to master. It's also got a really cool aesthetic and theme going on as well, if that wasn't already obvious. I mean, you drive inside and on top of a dragon's body for crying out loud. It's not a track I pick all too often because it can be quite punishing if you do make a mistake, but it's one I can respect the developers for bringing into our lives, and I'm glad I've gotten better at it over time. Number 25, Sherbet Land. I'm giving the award for Best Double Dash Track in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe to this icy and snowy track for the sole reason that I feel like this course is so much better to race on in this game as opposed to its original rendition back in 2003. And I'd almost go as far as to say that the original is probably one of my least favorite tracks in that game too, so this was quite the improvement. There's just something about this track that flows together just perfectly. The ice and snow physics don't seem as tedious to deal with either, and to capitalize on the fact that you race underwater in this game, what was normally out of bounds in Double Dash is actually more of a fleshed out water section in this game, which opens up the track a lot more for alternative routes you can take. Sure, going underwater is ultimately slower than being on land, but the option is nice, and when I started playing this game, I almost always instinctively took the water routes just because they were there. This is just a really cool track now, no pun intended, and I really like what the developers did with it. Number 24, Rainbow Road, SNES. This game has the notable distinction of featuring two of the most difficult tracks from Super Mario Kart. And funnily enough, I think they're both actually more fun to race on in this game. For Rainbow Road, not much has changed here. It's largely the same returning track that was also featured in Mario Kart 7, and I wouldn't say it adds anything more to the formula, but I honestly don't think it really even needed to. There's just something about this one that feels good to race on. It's very basic, as you'd expect from a track that was originally in an SNES game, but I wouldn't say it's easy either. You still have to look out for the thwomps, and you can even manage to get some extra speed boosts if you trick off the mini shockwaves they leave in their downward assaults. The fact this course has no walls or railings to prevent yourself from falling may feel scary. It certainly was during the SNES days. But here, I feel like they widened the track enough to make it feel more safe and secure and give you plenty of room to drift on by without worry. And that's pretty cool. It even feels fun to race on in 200cc as well, which is another positive it has going for it. Number 23, Mario Kart Stadium. As a newly introduced circuit course, there's just something about this track that pumps me up way more than the regular Mario circuit does. I think it's a great introduction to what you'll expect with Mario Kart 8's core anti-gravity gameplay. It's got some pretty neat shortcuts you can take to edge out the competition, and it's just a very solid track to start this game with. Yeah, it's still pretty simple, mainly because it's not only a Mushroom Cup track, but also the very first track you will likely race on in this game, but it doesn't give me the same empty feeling that Mario Circuit does, and instead, just puts me in that awesome racing mood and mindset. Number 22, CLOUDTOP Cruise. When I first played Mario Kart 8, this was a track that really stood out to me, and considering that it's in the top half, I do think it's still pretty solid in its own right. However, over time, I do think this track has mellowed out a bit. I get a bit of Sky Gardens vibes from this one, but with the added novelty of traveling through an airship, which does bring a bit of that Mario nostalgia to the mix as well. However, a few things hold me back from making this pick a little higher, and those things would be driving on the airship before the cannon, which can be a little tricky if your turning is off, and the shortcut at the very end, which can be quite punishing if an inconvenient item appears, or another racer tries to take that shortcut with you. However, it's still a pretty cool track in its own right, and one of the highlights of the original Mario Kart 8 tracks in the original base game. Number 21, Shy Guy Falls. This track took a while for me to get on board with, but now that I'm more experienced with this game, it has really started to grow on me a lot more. The aesthetic for this course is incredible, taking a similar theme and idea from Yoshi Falls, and expanding and opening it up a lot more to an actual full-fledged waterfall canyon. Some of the beginning and closing turns can be a little awkward to manage, especially on 200cc, but you get a nice rush from the rest of the course, especially the high-speed water and gliding sections. It's a truly great finale for the Flower Cup Grand Prix tournament. Number 20, Mount Wario. On the subject of cup finales, here is Star Cups in the form of Mount Wario. The concept of this course is pretty neat, a downhill race on a snowy peak, but instead of snowboards or skis, you have racing carts and bikes, and the result is pretty cool, I must say. It's pretty neat how this course is divided up as well, with the starting line being from the inside of an airplane, the first section focusing on an ice cavern, the second section being a mountain forest, and the final section being literally a downward rush for the finish line. I think the only things preventing this track from getting a bit higher on the ranking, though, are the sections with the trees, which can be tedious as hell. And the final stretches of the race aren't too exciting either. But it's a great way to wrap up another Grand Prix Cup, that's for sure. Number 19, Twisted Mansion. I am a huge fan of Luigi's Mansion from Mario Kart DS, but Twisted Mansion is a pretty solid runner-up for Best Haunted Ghost track in the series. It has the atmosphere done quite well, and I like how a lot of the sections are very twisty and curvy to fit in with not only the name, but also with the anti-gravity mechanics too. Heck, even the water section at the halfway point is a neat little addition to this track as well, giving it a pretty unique flair when compared with other haunted tracks in the series. My only hang-up on this course is probably the section after the air glider, where the turns can be a little tricky to navigate through, especially at the end of a heated race when trying to catch up with your competition or even defend yourself from further item spam. It's still a very solid racetrack though. Number 18, Dolphin Shoals. Once again, I was debating putting this one a little higher because as an almost fully underwater track, this course is actually really neat and has a lot going for it. However, I do think the section with the pipes and jet streams does make me a bit nervous at times, and has the potential to really mess you up under specific circumstances. Also, be careful at the end, because if you don't get something good or at least something defensive from the item boxes, I find that's a prime spot and opportunity for your competitors to mess you up and steal your higher placements. Number 17, Donut Plains 3. Donut Plains 3 is my least favorite track in Super Mario Kart, but in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, wow, they really went above and beyond with improving this one. The underwater driving mechanic turns the broken bridge of Doom into something way more sensible, and even the tight turns that were featured in the original even feel less intense in this version. It also in general just feels way more open in this version, allowing racers the opportunity to take some really tight and nice shortcuts. Everything in this locale, including the high-definition puddles, just looks fantastic, and this is probably the most definitive design for a Donut Plains or Lakeside track we'll ever see in a Mario Kart game. I suppose the only thing that's a bit of a downer for this track is that it's kind of on the short side, but it's definitely far from the shortest, and a really, really awesome track. Good job on making this retro track a lot better to race on, Mario Kart 8 developers. Thank you. Number 16, DK Jungle. The Mario Kart 7 tracks are quite easily the least edited of the retro tracks in this game, and that's understandably due to the fact that they were the most recent tracks before this game came out, so not a lot needed to be changed or edited here. DK Jungle really only got an anti-gravity section near the end, but that's really all it needed. It was already a solid track in Mario Kart 7, and it's a solid track here as well, and that's pretty much all I have to say about it. Number 15, Neo Bowser's City. When the DLC featuring this track first came out, I was admittedly very nervous. For one, I'm more of a bike racer, and two, the idea of doing 200cc on a track featuring perhaps one of the tightest turns in the game, with no barriers mind you, was not a pleasant prospect. However, as I've gotten more skilled with this game, especially at racing 200cc, it's really gotten me to see how challenging this track can be, but in a very good way. And in a strange twist of fate, practicing this track on 200cc actually got me better at driving on this track normally, as this course is truly the ultimate test when it comes to your tight turning and drifting, not to mention optimal use of brake drifting. 200cc can admittedly still be a bit much for this course, but there's no arguing what a high skill threshold this track has going for it. And when you start to learn the tools of the trade, it feels really damn good to race on. It also just looks really cool, and the weather effects give it a neat atmospheric impact as well, even if it does make you slip around a bit more than usual. Honestly, I'm glad I stopped being scared of this track because it's been a lot of fun to race on these days. Number 14, Sunshine Airport. My good friend DT would say that an airport is no place to be goofing off or playing around, but in Mario Kart, I'd say it's a much different story. I really like this track, not just for the fact that it's a very unique setting for a racing course, but also how the track kind of simulates the entire idea of air travel. You start inside of a terminal, then you head out into where the planes are, you fly around for a little bit, and then the track finally ends as you re-enter the airport at baggage claim, which I think is a neat simulation of the whole airport and air travel experience. The gliding sections can be quite costly if you manage to get hit by an item, especially a lightning bolt, and you do have to be a bit careful near the beginning when trying to avoid the boxes and driving under the stationary aircraft, but it's a pretty solid new track addition for the Mario Kart series, and I'd like to see them do more tracks of this nature. Number 13, TICK-TOCK Clock. This was one of my favorite additions from Mario Kart DS, and I really love that it came back in this game, because I think the developers did it even more justice. You no longer have to avoid getting hit by a clock hand when driving around in some of the clock faces, and the course itself looks pretty neat and is still very fun to race on. The shortcut at the end is a little weird and awkward to take, but I'd honestly not even bother with it, as it doesn't really even seem that much faster than drifting around normally, and feels way more risky than not, since the clock hands need to be facing a specific way. Number 12, Cheep, Cheep Beach. We have another and the final track from Mario Kart DS in this list. This was already a solid track from the dual-screen Mario Kart game, and it doesn't really change much here either. The underwater driving does enhance the track a little more, allowing for some neat little shortcuts and corner cutting. And the course itself just feels really smooth and nice to race on. It's probably one of the best beach courses in the entire Mario Kart series, if I'm being brutally honest with you. Number 11, Music Park. This is my favorite track from Mario Kart 7, and although a part of me still kind of prefers racing in it in that game, it's still a really good track here as well. The only changes it has are emphasizing some of the turns to give it more of that anti-gravity feel, but that's really all it had to do, I guess, since it was already a really fun course to drive on. Be careful of one specific turn in 200cc though, as brake drifting will most certainly be required when you get to that point. Number 10, Royal Raceway. Yes, they unfortunately removed the on-location Peach's Castle tour in this version of this course, but to be honest, I think they actually made this track way more fun to race on in general, as they fixed some of the weird slopes and elevations that made the original a little harder to traverse on at times. It also looks absolutely stunning as a normal circuit track, featuring gorgeous cherry blossom trees and a beautiful lake with swan boats floating around. Even the ridiculously long extended ramp from the original got modified into a more condensed gliding section, which just seemed like a better fit for this locale in general. This was just a great way to remix and revise a circuit track and make it an even more pleasant experience. Number 9, Big Blue. Nintendo really has been slacking on giving us a new F-Zero game, but Mario Kart 8 found a way to share some love to Nintendo's other racing franchise with its DLC, featuring not just one, but 2 F-Zero themed tracks. The first one I'm highlighting is Big Blue, which is a bit longer but also a section track, with only 1 lap instead of a 3-lap fair, and that's kind of the reason why it's ranked lower. I like how Big Blue has a little more going for it, with obstacles and sections that are a bit more unique than the other F-Zero track, but I do think this track is a little more difficult to drive on, and the final stretch can be a bit unnerving since it's a bit more open and makes it more likely for you to take a hit with one last item. It's still a really awesome track though, and was a great way to conclude the initial DLC content this game got. Number 8, Mute City. Yeah, I couldn't rank Mute City too much differently than Big Blue, as both tracks got me excited and pumped for pretty much the same exact reasons. I just like Mute City fractionally better because it's a lap track and I feel like you get a greater sense of speed on this course, something that falls more in line with the F-Zero racing mindset. Captain Falcon would be proud of all this sweet F-Zero nostalgia. Now, if only they could release a new F-Zero game already. Also, if it wasn't obvious, 200cc was literally made for these tracks, and it's not too out of line to feel like you are in an actual F-Zero game when you are racing on them in 200cc. You get quite the rush of speed. Number 7, Electrodrome. There's just something about Electrodrome that always gets me pumped to race on it, and I think it's just the general energy that this course provides in its atmosphere. Heck, even the piranha plants, which are supposed to be course obstacles, can't help but bob their heads to the music as this party continues jumping. It's just a really solid course with a really neat anti-gravity section, and is perhaps one of the most fun and fitting courses for the 200cc engine class. Number 6, THWOMP Ruins. It's hard to believe that THWOMP Ruins is only a Mushroom Cup track, as it feels like it could just as easily be a part of the Flower Cup. But no, this is the finale to the opening Grand Prix, and as you can see, it has left a very positive impression on me. I think what I like about this track, aside from just the general atmosphere, is also the freedom of choice you have with it, particularly in the middle of the track when the paths split up, and you have a choice of riding the walls, trying to go under the thwomps, or even hopping in the water for a more amphibious approach. Even on the last lap, the gliding panel opens up, which allows you to fly over that section entirely. The ending also features a shortcut that can be a bit tricky to take as you risk falling out of bounds if you mess it up, but if you take it properly, it will give you a nice boost as you glide to the finish line. Also, if you manage to keep a mushroom for the start of every lap, there's another shortcut you can also take that will cut a couple of turns out of the beginning, giving you a nice start to the lap as well. and even on 200cc, that shortcut is capable of being taken without a mushroom with the right skill mastery, which is also pretty cool. What can I say, it's a very nice track that offers a lot for only being in the Mushroom Cup. Feels good to race on in 200cc, and has always been a standout for me in this game. Number 5, Yoshi Valley. Yoshi Valley was always a track that I loved in Mario Kart 64, but due to some of the tight turns and an incredibly punishing falling animation if you fall off the track, those factors admittedly hindered my enjoyment of what would otherwise be one of my favorites in that game. Thankfully, Mario Kart 8 had the foresight to not only bring the track back for another chance to shine, but it also fixed pretty much all of the issues I had with it beforehand. The freedom of choice as you navigate this track is pretty impressive, and although there is an optimal way to go every lap, it's still fun to see the other routes and what they have to offer, and despite all the twisty turns, 200cc actually feels pretty good here as well. It's not quite my favorite retro track in this game, but it's pretty close and was an easy candidate for 5th place. Number 4. I think it's kind of cool that when DLC was announced for Mario Kart 8, it wasn't just retro tracks or cameo tracks, but even some new additions to the series as well. And the new track that shines the most for me is none other than Wild Woods. This track is absolutely beautiful and has some really nice set pieces, from starting the race on the trunk of a tree, crossing some wooden bridges located in the treetop village, going down a rushing water stream as you cross a pond to end up back to where you start the race. The track even feels pretty good in 200cc as well, although I do recommend that you move with caution at the 2 split paths, as unnecessary tricking could throw you right off the map, and that's not good. Still though, a very beautiful track that really shines for me, and one of my favorites from this generation of Mario Kart. Number 3. If you are keeping score at home, we have 2 original tracks left and 1 retro track, and I'm giving 3rd place to the retro track. Returning all the way from Mario Kart Super Circuit, we have Ribbon Road. Now, if you look at the original Ribbon Road, as unique as a course that it was very one-note and didn't really offer a lot of variety. However, I don't know what inspired the developers with this one, but they really went all out with this retro course. Almost to the point where if it wasn't named as a retro course, I'd almost be convinced that this was an original track by itself, because it does not feel the same at all. Now, I'm not saying that as a bad thing, and I wouldn't even say the original Ribbon Road was truly that bad of a track either. However, this course is absolutely overflowing with charm, and I like how this version does kind of its own thing. The course is essentially divided up into 3 colored sections, and each section has its own set of obstacles and features. The red section is pretty basic, as it's where the starting line is. The green section features some Mecha Koopas you have to dodge, unless you have mushrooms or starmen that will allow you to go off-road and skip them, and the blue section takes you for an anti-gravity ride as you zoom over the treasured toy room and can take some pretty neat shortcut ramps as well. And to top it all off, 200cc feels pretty damn good here as well. Just a really inspirational track with a lot going for it, and quite easily the best track of the original DLC sets. Number 2. We have 2 tracks remaining and 2 Mario characters going toe-to-toe in the match for my favorite track in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. And coming in at 2nd place, we have the badass king himself on his own home turf with Bowser's Castle. This castle is absolutely rockin', and let's face it, Bowser already has some pretty awesome castle tracks in the history of this series as it is. But this castle, from the moment you start listening to the music, you know that you're in for a really good time. The course starts out simple enough as you drive through a few empty rooms and hallways, but after you complete your first lap, the Bowser statues start firing lasers at you, in a very awesome nod to Super Mario Bros. 3's final castle. Then you have to dodge rotating fire bars, a giant spike ball, and even a giant Bowser statue that starts alternately punching 2 separate sides of a split path. Then after a few tight turns, you glide over a giant lava pit as you enter the home stretch and drive around giant boulders in one last-ditch effort to knock you around before you reach the finish line. It's non-stop action from the very beginning to the very end, and feels the way a Bowser Castle track should feel. I wouldn't say it's the hardest or most challenging Bowser's Castle in the history of this franchise, but it's definitely a very memorable one, and one that I can quite easily consider one of my top 2 favorite tracks in this game. But what's got number 1? Number 1. And here we are, folks. My #1 pick for my favorite track in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe goes to Toad Harbor. Yeah, even though Bowser has recently become my all-time favorite Mario character, the little mushroom guy himself can surely take solace in knowing that I do think he has a pretty solid home course in this game. And Toad Harbor is just a really, really nice track. It may not be the most exciting or the most challenging, but the atmosphere is really just unique for a racetrack, giving it almost a real-world feel to places like San Francisco or Newfoundland or Sonic Adventure 2's City Escape. It also has a lot of unique sections, various twists and turns, branching paths, and some cool little shortcuts to boot. This is just a really, really nice track that always equals out to a fun experience for me, and there's not a lot I really find wrong with it either. And because it's nothing super convoluted or extreme, it works nicely as a 200cc track as well. And with that, I can say and truly declare that Toad Harbor is my favorite track in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. And that will do it for my ranking list this time. Thanks to everyone for joining me for this special ranking video, and I promise I will get back to Mario Party as soon as humanly possible. I just wanted to take a little break, and since I was focused on the hype of the first Mario Kart 8 Deluxe DLC, I wanted to focus that hype on something constructive, and something I had always wanted to do for this channel, and I think this list came out very nicely. Now, by the end of this DLC, we'll have an additional 48 tracks to take a look at, and maybe in the future, once they are all out, I'll revisit this game and do another list of all the DLC tracks. And if I'm crazy enough, a master list of everything. But until then, let's just focus on the DLC as it releases, and have a good time racing on some classic Mario Kart tracks, and maybe even some new ones for those who haven't played Mario Kart Tour. This has been SlimKirby, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Later, folks.